All right, we're going to start off with that classic 7-field static IMRT prostate case. Now we can launch by going up to our tools menu, or in this case, I have my hotkey set, so I will go ahead and launch it that way. Now you can see overall the user interface for 1.7 did not change significantly. I'll be pointing out a few changes as we go through. So let's start off in Template Manager and we'll be able to talk about the changes to the dose constraints. All right, here I have my RTOG 0815 prostate template already assigned to my patient. So the first thing I want to point out is we have added in the regular expression support for our contours. So here you can see I've added this PTV and then the period and asterisks here will allow this to be able to match even if it has some other ending. So if the physicians like to add in the dose at the end of the PTV, PTV 81, PTV 7920, whatever the case may be, it should still auto match for you. Now another change that I've added in here is the ability to change your priorities. So the default in previous versions was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on. Here, if you double click, you would be able to come in and manually type this so you can have multiple that have the same value and then you can assign them all the way down. Then down here at the bottom, I just want to point out another example here. We've added in this tilde, and what this is going to do is allow you to set a dose constraint that will never fail. So in this case, even if the max dose is over the 3000 centigrade, rather than displaying as a red X, it is only going to display as a blue conditional triangle. So this is great for things that are soft dose constraints, things that are, that would like to be met, but it is not a deal breaker if they are not. So you can go ahead and add in this little tilde right before your goal, whether that's in relative or in absolute, and then that will convert it to that, not failing dose constraint. Something else that we've added in is the ability to do dose tracking for more constraint types. So we've added in conformality index, gradient index, a few others in there. That was a popular request. So you can go ahead and look for that as well. All right, moving on to our structure checks. Highlight my structure check over here on the left. So you can see we've added two new columns, the distance to the CT end, and then you can specify the distance for that, as well as this column for checking that the contour is inside of the body. So both of these very helpful, great checks to run before you even start optimizing when you first come in and review your contours. And then the last one here that we've added is this support structures outside of body. So just making sure that as you're adding those couch structures, that they haven't accidentally overlapped with that, posterior part of the patient's body and would be overriding the density in that area. Now margin expansions was part of our previous version, so I'm going to skip over that and then come right down to this nesting check. So I've gone ahead and added a new one. So you can click on this plus button to add one. In this case, it is going to be making sure that my GTV fits within my PTV. There's no parts of my GTV that are popping outside of it. And you can set this up for targets, multiple targets, or OARs as well. So you have a lot of flexibility in how to use that. All right, so then our biggest change here across the top is you can see there is a new tab, so treat prep checks in addition to our plan checks. So I'll just click on this very briefly to show you. Same as before, your plan checks are not going to be editable in this workspace. You'll be able to preview them and see if you have multiple, which is going to be the best fit for your plan. Treat prep checks is going to be the exact same way. So when you come in, you'll be able to preview them. You will not be able to edit them. So we'll spend a little bit more time in admin and I'll go over these in more detail. So let's just apply these and head into our evaluation workspace. All right, so the first thing down here at the bottom, talking about that, conditional dose constraints, you can see my max dose is nearly 35 gray, so well over that 3000 centigrade that we set. And it is not showing up as a red X, but simply as that blue triangle. All right, so let's scroll down. This part has all stayed the same. Here in our structure checks, we have that distance to the CT as well as the inside body check. And then down here you can see it looks like my couch must be just peeping over that body contour, so I could go back in and fix that. Our nesting checks, everything looks good here, so my GTV is fully within my PTV, so I'm getting a pass. And then we have our plan checks, and we have added quite a number of new plan checks in there. So lots of different things, nomenclature checks. We've added in the ability to check for the BBs, making sure that that has been set up correctly. Also added in rail support. So if you have a couch with rails, being able to detect where those rails are, where they should be based off of the technique, and then giving you a heads up if any of your fields are going through the rails. Also some bolus checks, making sure that the bolus is linked to your fields and that the fields are all covered. We've also added in these complexity checks, so making sure that the complexity of the plan is reasonable. And then the skin flash, that the skin flash has been set according to whatever parameters you put into admin. Now, I do want to circle back here for a moment. The collision check has gotten a little bit of a revamp in 1.7. Here you can say it says run collision check to send the results to ClearCheck. So we're not automatically going to run that for you anymore. Now you will be asked to go into the collision check module and review it, and then you can send your results all the way back to collision check. So here's what we look like. There have been a few changes here. Most notably, we now support the OBI imaging source panel and the imager. So you can add that in your admin to have the ClearCheck collision check see those separate than your gantry head. So you can still interact with this just the same as before. Our collision warnings have now moved and they are in this bottom lower corner. So once everything looks good, now you have the option to send the results back to ClearCheck. And now when you scroll through your plan checks, you will see that those results are here. Everything is passing. We've also added the ability to send this to the report, and I'll go over that in a few minutes. Now, in addition, we've added in these treat prep checks. So these will be all the way at the bottom. And this is mostly going to focus on those last minute settings that will need to be done in the kind of treatment approval stage at the very end of the planning process, and then also including the QA and the portal dosimetry. So then we also have our portal dosimetry module here across the top. So this new icon here launches portal dosimetry. When you click on that, it's going to ask you to choose your verification plan. And now ClearCheck is going to pull in all of that portal dosimetry information, and it's going to display all of those results here. So we can see our past, all of our images, and then there are information for each one of our fields here below. So if that all looks good, then you can send those results to ClearCheck. And similar to our collision check results, these now can also be included in our reports. So let's take a look at those reports. All right, so now we have all of our sections of our report over here on the right-hand side. And of course, you can always uncheck any sections that you do not want to print. Another feature that we have added in is the ability to highlight sections in your report. So this would be a feature in admin, and you will just simply select the line item that you want to be highlighted, and when you come in here, it will automatically highlight it for you. As we scroll down, we can see we have our portal dosimetry results in here. And then we have all of our other checks, including our collision check. All right, so let's close out of this and we'll hop over into admin and I'll show you a few other new features that have been added into that. We have our plan checks and our treat prep checks broken out. So here's where you'll be able to review all of the new plan checks that we have added in. By default, they will be turned off. So once you get the new version, come in here, review all of the different additions that you can add, determine whether or not they are a good fit for your clinic, and then if they are, go ahead and turn them on using this active checkbox. So you can see all of the new ones here. I have them all turned on. You can set your values. There are some brachytherapy checks here as well. For the nomenclature, they're going to use that same regular expression. So if you have any questions about how that works, we do have some resources that we can share about using regular expression and how to set up those phrases. And then over here in our treat prep, we can highlight our defaults. And then this is where we're going to see those QA and portal dosimetry checks listed out. Under the report, I'll show you the highlight feature. So if you come in here, and for any one of these sections, you can see you now have this column for highlight. So if you like to see a specific item highlighted, you can simply check that. Now we can also have the primary oncologist ID as well as the primary oncologist name displayed. And that's going to be able to be set up in the settings section. So we've added in this new oncologist ID values. So unfortunately, the API does not allow us to pull the oncologist name across, but we do get the ID. So what we can do here in the settings is convert that ID to an oncologist name. Now the oncologist ID, you can see when you go into the patient registration, right here it displays. So then you can type in that ID here and convert it to however you want that name to display. We also have this IsoCenter verification module that we've added in. And then I'm going to come over to machine configuration. So this was previously collision check. You can see this is where you would set up your machines. And then if you are using the OBI, you would check this box. And now anytime it sees a setup field, it's going to assume it's a KV and use the source and imaging panel instead of, again, the gantry head and the MV imager panel. And you can set your parameters here for that, and that is going to be from your ISO center. All right, heading back to that reports tab one more time, it's worth mentioning that we have now added under the document service tab the ability to upload your documents as completed. So if you are using that print to ARIA and you would like that checkbox completed, here's where you'll be able to set that. If you have any questions as you're going through admin or through our ClearCheck and you have questions about new features, in our information button here across the top, we do have a link to our ClearCheck user manual. This is great particularly for those new plan checks, the treat prep checks. If you're wondering how they work or what they're looking at, you can always reference the manual and take a look at all of that. All right, so that is our conclusion of our version 1.7 new features. I would also direct you to our release notes as well as our user manual. They'll go into a lot more detail, all those changes, but those are the highlights. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, support@radformation.com. Thank you very much.